Hi everyone, welcome to Altcoin Bible Wednesday. Boy, do I love diving into my watch list and checking out what cryptos are looking cherry ripe, what are ones we need to be watching, and also what look like they're about to maybe move to the downside a bit further, and they're in my danger zone. Sometimes it can be really, really obvious, and sometimes it can be very, very subtle. And I do like to show you a few examples in most cases, so you can see what that actually does look like. Today, I'm actually going to go back on to a couple of cryptos we looked at last week. In fact, it might just be one. That might be Shiba Inu today, because I just want to have a look at how it's progressing, because that was my one to watch, and it's dropping into some nice zones there as well. But today we're going to focus on Atom, which is a layer one, very, very popular layer one ecosystem. Look, let's crack straight in, and instead of me just talking over my face, you can have a look at the chart, which I'm looking at, and I think it looks really, really positive for continued up move here. So Adam, we may have had it a few weeks ago as maybe a one to watch, or just keep an eye on, potentially even a cherry ripe. I can't quite remember. However, the chart really hasn't changed too much. This positive trend is quite obvious to the eye. It was in this channel. Same with a lot of other cryptos. Most other cryptos, and this is the contrast between this and many others, is Atom broke down and was really only a shallow breakdown. Every other crypto had a far larger drawdown to previous support levels, but Atom seems to be riding this wave and looking rather strong. And we're actually cracking back into this this channel that continues to ride high. Now, it hasn't broken back into it just yet, but it's trying to crack through. Ultimately, I think we're almost at the point where this channel doesn't matter anymore. I think it's far more valuable if we just get rid of that to start to look at horizontals, resistance levels, volume profiles, over here on the right, and also the RSI down the bottom. That's what I really want to look at. But overall, if you just have a look at what we're seeing here, this is just a higher low structure. Now, it's not as steep as it was previously over here, but this low is higher than these last few lows, and this low here is still higher than the last. And you just see that going higher, which is really, really positive. What I really, really like to see here is it's bounced really heavily off the volume profile right here. Did go a little bit lower, which is in line with the Fibonacci retracement area. So I'll just bring that up here. Right there. So it bounced off the 0.786. It did wick down a little bit further, but overall it's climbed back above and it's moving higher. So this is really what you want to see in an uptrend, a real positive uptrend where it really grinds down those Fibonacci levels, really takes in some new liquidity, some rocket fuel for it to go higher. You really want to pay attention though if, say, it cracks through some of those levels and couldn't maintain them, and then it comes back down to these sort of areas. That's when you're more looking at the mid to longer term. This is probably more a shorter term analysis. And right now, this looks really positive for a move higher. I also like as well, one, that it's on top of that volume profile, as we said, but also the 21-day moving average. This always shows you if something is in a short-term uptrend. So you can see all the way up through here, it was bounce, 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 and then it broke back underneath, and we had to see what was going to happen next. It broke back above the volume, back above the 21, really nice. Then did another sort of fake out in line with Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the macro, and how it's been pretty bearish lately. But now it's rallied back above. So it is showing relative strength against pretty much everything at the moment. There are other cryptos that do look similar to this, but for today, I'm looking at a really high market cap coin, which is Atom. It's got a lot of popularity out there as well, so a lot of eyeballs will be on it. I like down here that the RSI is just showing a continuous uptrend as well. Overall, through this uptrend, we did see a bit of that momentum wean off, but this move downwards, price action wasn't really that deep, as we said, but the RSI really had a good clean out. And then we saw a lot of rocket fuel come back in for bulls, then we've come back. Again, these bounces are higher and higher. So bulls are gaining strength as the price was pulling back, but still making those higher lows, which is super, super positive to see. We did make this higher high from all these highs going previous, which is fantastic. And right now, this to me looks prime for a run. Potentially up to this kind of area up here, the 200-day moving average. You know, I have the 17 up there because I believe that's a horizontal point. Let's just have a look. Well, it could be a point on the weekly that's a contextual level. Yeah, so it's over here where the previous run up in 21 had that really big pullback. I'm not sure how strong that will be. I may, in fact, prefer to move this down to maybe that 200. I think that will be more significant in terms of the short term, and we should see a bit of a front running into that $17 area anyway. So 16 is probably a little bit better for me in terms of where this could go. But you can see here, it fell back right into these areas where we really wanted to look at in terms of that Fibonacci retracement. So $9.7 didn't quite get hit, but we did hit the 10 0.8, also got down to about, didn't quite get to 10. And that's something you'll learn as you go through, as you progress through looking at crypto charts and whatnot, is a lot of those whole numbers, which people really love to put bids on, say $10, $9, $8, $5, whatever. They will get front run, or bidders will try and go just in front of it because they know people are expecting price to get to that level, and it never does. It leaves people behind. Alternatively, on the flip side, if you've got bids stacked, like we were saying at 17, because it's a key horizontal, or even the 200, there's going to be a lot of sell orders placed in these areas. So if you want to make sure that your sell order is likely going to get hit, maybe move it down just a little bit more, maybe $16. Try and front run it a little bit yourself. That's something just to pay attention to. I think we've covered everything there. It's in my cherry right, positive trend 21. Yeah, so everything looks quite rosy here, but I would really want to see this horizontal that I've got here really get taken out, because you can see this was resistance for quite a while. We didn't use it as support previously, so we're going to run up against it again, see what happens there. But kind of a nice, almost like a head and shoulders pattern here. Normally that's a bearish pattern, so you would not want Atom to fail at $12.50 and come back down, because then you'd almost be in a head and shoulders type situation where we could see a larger protracted drawdown here. But overall, I really like what Atom is showing me here. We'll move on to my danger zone, because I always just find danger zones to be rather fun to look at. So RFOX overall, ever since, let's go back to the last major run, which is in 21, RFOX had some really, really good positive runs up almost to, got up to about 35 US cents. Right now you can see it's put a couple of decimal places on that, and if we go back, you can just see the huge drawdown. And if you're looking at the Wall Street cheat sheet and something like that, you can see the big drawdowns and then goes into a trough, bear accumulation. Now, I just want to point out that a lot of these altcoins may never recover to those highs. If you've got a fundamental crypto, you're doing your analysis on it, not a fundamental crypto, if you're doing your fundamental analysis on a crypto and you see there's got a lot of catalysts coming up ahead in the future, it's got a lot of development, it's still got a lot of interest, it's got a great use case, then looking at a crypto like this and beginning to dollar cost average into a longer term position is a fantastic way to go about things. But you also got to be you need to recognize what the state of the market is in. And right now, if Bitcoin and Ethereum are struggling, altcoins are going to struggle doubly. There's not a lot of retail participants in the space at the moment. So a lot of these more speculative coins, something like the e-commerce, metaverse side of things, yes, it's probably going to be a big thing in the future, but you've got to be prepared for a little bit of pain. And a lot of these levels to maybe give way to levels you maybe thought wouldn't actually be there. And this is quite low. But if we're looking at this in isolation, I mean, you really want to go out to the weekly, but if we're looking at more of a daily snapshot, this is really in my danger zone, because one, it's not above any key moving averages here on the daily. And two, it has failed when it's run into them. Also at range high, it's now underneath huge volume bars above it. So you can just see here these wicks wicking up into these moving averages. That's also into huge volume support. So right now, RFOX, the probabilities are that there's not a lot of strength out there, there's not a lot of capital out there. So what are the probabilities that RFOX is going to rally above these areas, unless there's something that's coming, some fundamental item that's coming up in the calendar that could really rally this higher? Right now, this trend just clearly looks like it's coming down to test the bottom of this range. And this could very well be the bottom for RFOX, absolutely. And if you go back to previous cycles, bottoms look pretty horrible before they eventually find the bottom and move out. But a lot of bottoms are beginning to look like this on a lot of cryptos, where you almost have the capitulation, and then you have almost the disbelief rally back into an area, or a dead cat bounce into a key moving average, and then the pull back down to the 0.786. This is a pattern I really want you to clue into, because in bottoms, and especially before big reversals, generally the market likes to play with emotions and play with traders, and it has that little run up to get people FOMOing and buying a bit harder, when really it's going to retrace fully. And this is all exit liquidity for people who couldn't sell higher, and then there's a big sell-off until we really ground all those speculators out and then find those true bottoms. And overall, if you're looking at this, the lows here, this is a higher low. However, in the short term, the momentum on the RSI clearly is down. I mean, these just are shallow. For me, this looks like a puke is incoming, that we're going to come down here and maybe test these lows, or get a little bit lower and hopefully create a high low. Otherwise, if this level fails, RFOX is in a world of hurt, and I don't know if it's been lower than that. I think we're pretty close to record lows. On the flip side of that, if you look at the RSI a bit longer term, you can see that for this spike here and this here, we actually made some pretty serious lows on the RSI. We've never been lower than that. I don't think so. If you go back, there may be some other exchanges that have further data going back, because this was listed on KuCoin a couple of years ago. RFOX has been around a couple of years. I don't know if there's more data out there. There may be. But just have a look at that RSI. You know, we could come back to these lower levels, absolutely. Yeah, just keep that in your mind. This looks like it's going to move a bit lower. And there's many cryptos that look like this. So a DCA, if you're still keen on something like this, is probably a better alternative to going, you know, too hard too soon and then getting wrecked if it does another 50% haircut. So let's just have a look quickly. Another move to maybe that low is 12%. That's not much, but let's say, you know, does another 50%. It absolutely could, you know, somewhere down here below key volume. But generally with multi-year lows, there is funny thing is when it starts to get below some of these huge areas, oh, look at that. It's so far below previous historical lows, isn't it? So we're probably going to ground out a new low here. Even on the weekly, that's hugely low. You really want more data, and it's really difficult to plot that without more data. So let's just focus on that daily. And for me, it looks pretty horrible. It's probably going to come in here and puke. So yes, definitely a danger zone. All right, Link, super popular crypto, and it's absolutely my one to watch. Now, I mentioned about how important that 0.786 Fibonacci retracement is. Just overlaid it here. So overall, if this is a bottoming formation, you can just see here, Link moving up, testing range high, coming back, coming up, testing range high. So a lot of chop. It's really grinding out a lot of speculators and a bit of FOMO. It's come all the way back again to the 0.786. Again, another signpost. We just have to be careful that the more this level gets tested, the weaker it becomes. But at bottoms, buyers tend to come in and just really eat up a lot of that good value. So just keep that in mind. Again, we don't know if this is the bottom for a lot of these altcoins, but what we can go on here is the RSI as well. See here that capitulation low on the RSI got to about 17. This moved down to the 0.786, not quite the lows that we saw previous, but you know, in relative terms, this is a much higher position. So bulls are gaining strength over time, and we're beginning to push price higher. You can see here, low, higher, low, higher, low, higher, low. So in line with all this, this is moving higher. That's exactly what I like to see. It is my one to watch still because it is stuck in this volume area. It is trying to rally and break through. That's a really positive sign. I want to see it get through the 21 moving average, and I believe that's the 100. Does those three things in order, I believe we're going to about $9 again. So of course we want to see strength in BTC and Ethereum for that to happen. Also some guideposts where we could see here, you know, where it can come back to. I think the $6 area is really juicy if we're looking at Fibonacci retracements, because that's about where the 0.786 was. Down at 578, around about that area, is just the previous low. So it's going to be an area of high interest in this area here. Maintain that sort of bias on that there. If it fails there, it's probably coming back down to here, so you can catch some cheap Link if you want down in those areas. But if we do rally through here, it is looking very positive. We're going to $9 fairly quickly. Also, the RSI is turning up, trying to make a higher high on this previous little move here. So overall, looking quite positive. Still my one to watch. Lots of things to go right. It needs to go right for it to move higher, though. Ethereum, just quickly want to touch on it because it's got that huge incoming catalyst in September. Do not be surprised for Ethereum to outperform most things in the short term. Just been by moving high, not maybe in percentage terms, but just in movement in the market. Generally, the market's led by Bitcoin. But Ethereum in this circumstance, because it's just such a huge fundamental catalyst in the merge coming mid-September, I believe it's the 15th, we're just going to see a lot of speculators pile in and really push for that buy the rumor, sell the news, which in layman's terms is the anticipation is hotter than the actual event itself. So we see a big run up, and then we see a lot of smarter money sell off either just before the event to catch it, or sell off just as the event hit and then really wipe out last minute longers and also spot buyers. All right, just on Ethereum as well, on the longer term RSI from the previous bull markets, we're really now coming back to test that trend line. We're back above it. That's a really good sign. This is a huge area of importance because the Ethereum movement here has actually pulled back to the 0.618 and is bouncing quite hard back over the 21. So that's a really good sign for me. I'm going to get rid of this because it might confuse people. If it does let's say, run up to this key horizontal and gets broken down, then we're going to see these levels come quite quickly, because this is the area has lacking a lot of volume. You see here's this big gap, and then the 0.786 is around about that 1400, and then 1200 is the next floor around this volume area. Plus, it is the area where you could think that Ethereum has bottomed down here, and it's been a key area where prices either crash through or run back above. So these areas in here are going to be super, super sticky, as they provide that either support resistance on the way down. Now, Ethereum cracks through, absolutely. I think it's going to run through once it gets through this horizontal and through this moving average, it's going to 2140, near around that 200 moving average in the short term. And then it could really have that speculative blow through these areas. But just be careful if you're, thinking that it's going to keep running through mid-September onwards. I would be very, very cautious about that, because we're putting our monthly newsletter why that's probably not going to be the case, but it absolutely could. So just keep that in mind. Apart from that, yeah, Ethereum is looking fairly nice here. Overall, though, just want to be careful that we aren't creating a bit of a head and shoulders pattern here, which could kill a lot of that speculation around this area if it fails, and then we have that drop off. But still a lot of value here if you're a mid to longer term Ethereum holder, and maybe even in the short term as well. Just quickly, I want to throw back to SHIB. This is my one to watch last week, and I just want to show you how it's just fallen nicely into these buy levels here in this volume profile. How it's just sort of kept falling, but it's really doing what we wanted it to do. These are obviously buy zones, but we wanted this volume profile to hold up on the right hand side. It has, and now it really wants to make a real run through some of these areas to keep this momentum going. Otherwise, it is going to follow through how it's looking on the RSI and fall lower, and it's going to fall lower here. So yeah, still one to watch, and these targets are still absolutely on the cards, because it's still carrying this nice looking uptrend. But just be careful, because it has had this sell-off, and it's now creating these lower highs in succession. So I really want to see some power from SHIB here to get above, say, this last high. Also some power in the RSI. But yeah, one to watch. It's great to see. Also, Matisse is falling quite beautifully. In fact, I'll just bring that back, because it's probably was up there between Matisse and the one that I showed you, which was Link. So Matisse, let's go to Gate.io. More data. Yeah, so this is the one I showed you last week as my danger zone. It certainly did drop back down lower, which is positive, as we were talking about it. Here, I really want to see Matisse break through this level here. Otherwise, it's still very much in the danger zone. Some of these lower levels are certainly in play. So you can see how this can all sort of work together in unison if you're developing a short to mid-term thesis. Right now, these buy zones are definitely on the cards, but this trend definitely needs to break. You can see this high here, lower high, and now it's really wanting to break through here. If it does, then it's probably heading to some of these higher levels, the horizontal and this horizontal. But if it really shows weakness here, it's coming down to these areas here, and the RSI is going to make a new low. So guys, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I hope it's been informative. Hope you've learned a few things. As always, I have a blast. So have a wonderful day. We'll catch you again for our next video. Bye.